Welcome back to Breath Control and Bad Decisions, the podcast where we revisit the stuff that made Gen X look at the world and say, yep, that tracks. Today's episode is Chernobyl, because apparently don't touch that wasn't enough. I'm Gen X, and I am with my bestie,
Salty J. Hey, everybody.
So today we're talking about Chernobyl. And this was a huge event back in the 80s when it happened, and it was one of those things that you don't really think about because, again, as we talked about on the last episode, we thought the adults were going to keep us safe. But now that we are adults, we know that that's total bullshit, right?
Yeah, I think as a child, you just think everybody of authority is going to protect you. And
Right.
then as you live life, you realize that a lot of people in positions of authority are living their life for the first time too, and they don't know what the hell they're doing.
Right. Right.
Or they
Exactly.
don't care.
So I think it's a mix of, it's a little bit of a mixture of both, depending on the person. You know, I wouldn't say everybody's like that. We're gonna toss that mix together. So Chernobyl happened in the 80s, which was, as we all know, the 80s was just a magical decade when nuclear war was a perfectly reasonable background anxiety. Our parents thought helmets were optional. I didn't even know about helmets in the 80s. I don't know anybody that wore them on a bike.
I did
And
not.
somewhere in the Soviet Union, a bunch of engineers were about to discover that let's see what happens is not actually safety protocol. So we're going to go back to April 26th, 1986. So everybody get back in your Wayback Machine and buckle up.
I listened to a couple of podcasts to refresh myself before doing this episode. I don't think that I was so well versed on it, but they were so boring, I had trouble retaining the information. So I just want to remind our listeners, like, this is the Gen X version of history.
Mm-hmm.
You know how there's like a show, Drunk History? Like, I feel like our Gen X
The best
history
show.
is like, I love that show, actually.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have drunk Gen X history. Maybe that would be
Oh, God.
fun. But I feel like we have a different kind of view and take compared to the lady that worked for the BBC talking about it, you know, in her little British accent that I listened to. Like, I think that our version's probably maybe a little less accurate, but more relatable and more understandable and
Right.
more palatable to where you'll remember it. That's what I
Right.
wanted to say.
And we tried to deliver, we tried to show the reverence of the event with with a sprinkle of our Gen X humor as well, because for us that's how it's palatable, and that's how we got through things. I believe that's why our sense of humor is the way it is, and I think most Gen X knows that tragedy plus time equals humor, and that's where we are today, right?
For sure. For
So
sure.
in 1986, it was MTV, Top Gun, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, big hair, parachute pants, and about 47 different ways to die while riding your bicycle without a helmet, because we didn't wear helmets. And meanwhile, at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in what was then the USSR, reactor number 4 was about to have what we might generously call a really bad night. And by really
Really
bad
bad.
night, yeah, we mean one of the worst nuclear accidents in history. And we witnessed this in real time as children. For most of us, we were children. Some of us were 16 years old. For what I'm doing the math in my head, 16 to 21. Yeah. So, and some of us were very young children. I think
I was
Julie,
10.
you were 10. So, and
Yeah.
I was 15. I was almost 16. So the Chernobyl disaster, it wasn't really just a case of somebody pushing a wrong button. It was just a combination of flawed reactor design, inadequate safety systems, poor communication. God, I hope communication has changed over the decades. Procedural violations, and a workplace culture where questioning authority wasn't really encouraged. I don't really think you did that a lot in the Russia.
So basically, it's like every group project we had in school.
Yeah, exactly. Except for this one, involved a nuclear reactor, as they all do, right? As you do. So you can't just blame Kevin and move on. I guess you could.
No.
I guess you could. What's the Russian equivalent of Kevin?
Captain. I don't know. I can't speak Russian. I don't know.
So the engineers were trying to conduct a safety test designed to determine how long the reactor's turbines could continue providing electricity after a loss of external power and before the backup diesel generators became operational. Sounds reasonable, right?
In theory, it is.
Mm-hmm. So, in theory, that phrase, that's preceded an alarming number of disasters. How many times do you say, in theory, that should work?
Yeah. Well, I think that from everything I learned about it, we were in a race with Russia to build these nuclear programs, and they were in such a rush and trying to do it for a budget, and they don't think about people running these tests and just overriding and half-ass doing it. Like they didn't put the safety things in place because they were more worried about trying to beat us and have like the bigger, faster power. And it's the typical greed.
Mm-hmm. I would say
And
two
I mean,
things that shouldn't be hurried are nuclear reactors and or budgeted should be nuclear reactors and racing. You should have a budget for nuclear reactor, but there shouldn't be a race to see who gets there first, under budget or on budget.
I get it. Like people think, oh, if we have more power, we're going to be the best country. And in the United States, I feel like we're taught Americans are so smart, we're the best. But you go to other countries, a lot of them have better diets. Like I
most
don't think
most of them
anybody
have better
should, yeah,
diets.
I don't think anybody should be raised like, hey, I'm superior. I think we
Mm-mm.
should all be trying to kind of help each other out.
Yeah.
But with this, I think this is a culmination of power hunger and speed. That's what
Mm-hmm.
I think it is.
Yep. Yep. And in this case, that test that they were trying to do had been delayed for hours because the electrical grid needed power. The electrical grid needed power. I want you to think about that. During the
For
day,
nuclear power.
yeah, during the day, the reactor operated under conditions that made it increasingly difficult to control. Again, or I'm sorry, during the delay, not the day. I said day. During the delay. So there's a whole bunch of red flags just going here. So if the universe hasn't provided enough warning signs yet, the reactor's power dropped far below the desired level. The operators attempted to bring the power back up because that's what you want to do when your nuclear reactor is behaving strangely. Obviously, the next step is to keep screwing with it.
Yeah, like it's an unstable condition. Let's just keep pressing buttons and just
Yeah,
screw it up more.
yeah. What does this button do? Let's press this button. Let's see what this does. So
Yeah.
here we are. The reactor's operating in an unstable condition, and then they decided let's do the test. And they started
I
this test
know
at 1:30 in the morning.
I think that was, how when you're really tired and you just make dumbass decisions? That was one of
Yes,
them.
yes,
We haven't had
yes.
power, it's unstable. Let's run a test.
Yeah,
And
let's go ahead and do that.
of course, like within seconds of them starting that test, there's like this giant power surge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then an emergency shutdown was activated. And that's like, the nuclear equivalent of slamming on the brakes.
Mm-hmm.
Only,
Mm-hmm.
in this design, those brakes didn't hold.
Nope. Nope. They had characteristics that it just initially increased reactivity under the specific conditions present. So what does
Yeah.
that mean? The emergency button basically said, "Hold my vodka." That's my best Russian accent. That's the best as I'm gonna do. I can't get any better than that.
Better than mine. Yeah. And then that power surge was catastrophic. Like two explosions happened. The
Mm-hmm.
reactor building was sending radioactive material just everywhere out in the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly the whole world smoke alarm was going off.
Yep. And here's how they handled it. They called firefighters to the scene, but the firefighters had no idea that they were responding to a radiation emergency. Because radioactive contamination is kind of inconvenient that way. You can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it. But I
Yeah,
feel
and
like
there
if you're
wasn't
being
like,
called to a nuclear reactor, you should probably assume that that's what's happening.
yeah, but on TV shows and stuff, they have those radioactive meters that you get closer. I don't
Yeah.
think that firefighters carried around nuclear meters, like radiation meters, but they were definitely exposed to like these enormous doses before they even had a chance to even think about what was happening.
Right. Right. I mean, you're a firefighter, you're told there's a fire at the plant, and you show up in your gear thinking, all right, well, let's put out the fire. Except for you're dealing with an invisible hazard that just that can kill you and cause severe radiation problems and injuries. And as Gen X, we were told not to stare at the sun. Don't look directly into the sun. And that's what these guys were basically. They were basically standing next to the world's most dangerous glow stick.
Yeah, but in 1986, before all this, like you're a firefighter, you get called to a fire. What do firefighters do? You go in to put out the fire. That's what they
Yep,
thought they were doing.
that's what they thought they
You
were doing.
know, you're a firefighter. Do you climb on the roof? Yeah.
You're putting out a fire. That's your job. You would have no reason to think that you're running into a radioactive disaster. And the plant workers and the firefighters who responded did that. Their bravery cannot be overstated. They were exposed to extremely high radiation doses. Some of them died within weeks from radiation sickness, and it's such a horrendous thing to think about.
They say hindsight's 2020, and it is. You can think about
Mm-hmm.
what you would have done,
Mm-hmm.
but as a firefighter, I would have went in. And if I was the plant operator and my supervisor was telling me, hey, the reactor's not behaving normally, but I want you to run this test, would I refuse? I don't know. I have somebody in authority telling me to do it.
You don't question it. I think they just did it. I think here people would have questioned it. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
They didn't. I mean, they did a Challenger and they still went up. So.
I think that we don't question things until we know that it's a legitimate fear. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people didn't understand that. There was pregnant women that had officials saying, "There's no reason to panic, stay here."
Mm-hmm.
Or
Mm-hmm.
residents were told, I think it was like 3 days before they were telling people to evacuate. So I don't think that people understood the gravity or had the fear that we would have today. That's what I'm trying
Right.
to say.
Well, and that's because the immediate response, it was marked by secrecy and misinformation because Russia. Authorities failed to
Yeah.
communicate the scale of the disaster. The residents of what the city's Pripyat. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
I was going
Where
to
it was
ask you how
located.
to pronounce it because I say the
Yeah.
wrong way anyway. Although
Yeah.
I was going to say Pripyat, so that's definitely not the right pronunciation.
Well, it
Um,
could, but we don't know. We don't know, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it.
it's a
But they,
city, and it's
yeah,
Pripyat,
yeah,
and it's a
and they,
Soviet city that was around the plant.
right. It was built. It was the planned city for the workers at the plant. So it was home to thousands of people and schools, apartment buildings, stores, swimming pool, amusement park, families, a normal life. And then on the 27th of April, they were finally ordered to leave. But
Yeah,
they were
like
only
36
told,
hours
yeah, but
after
they
they
were
were
only told to
exposed.
bring essential belongings and expected to return relatively soon, which we know that they didn't. And you can see that when you watch videos of that city now. You can see what it looks like, and now you know why so many things were left because they were told you'll be back. You'll be back soon. It's not that big of a deal. You'll be just take what you need. And so the city
Imagine
was
like
permanently
leaving your
abandoned.
house in 20 minutes and I've gone through this with the hurricanes recently.
Hmm.
You think, okay, I have 20 minutes to figure out what's most important to me. It really changes your perspective on what is important.
Right.
Like
And yeah, we did that here in the
most of your
Midwest with
shit you don't need.
what's coming in the basement to survive the tornado, and then what's getting blown all over the fucking city. It's
Yeah.
so imagine being told that and that you're just going to be gone for a couple of days. You leave toys, you leave clothes, photographs, favorite records, perhaps your trapper keeper, and then you never go home.
Did Soviets
And
have trapper
yeah,
keepers?
I can't. Yeah, because by the time the '80s rolled around, Pepsi had been over there and Levi's jeans, and they had those kind of things. So I believe they probably did. I believe they. We're just gonna say that they did. I believe they did. So that's
That's
that's that's the part of Chernobyl that gets lost when when you look at these videos and it's being reduced to creepy abandoned buildings and mutant animal jokes. And it wasn't just a nuclear reactor accident, it was thousands of people losing their homes and communities right on the spot.
Yeah, there was definitely thousands of people in that area. And think about it, 36 hours before they evacuate them.
Mm-hmm.
And what upset me was the Soviet government didn't immediately tell everybody what was happening. Sweden detected the unusual radiation and
Yeah.
forced them to acknowledge something happened. And
Yeah.
that's just, if you
Yes.
can't trust your government, which, oh God, none of us can,
Jesus. No.
it's sad. It's scary because that's where you really put people in danger that don't need to be.
Right. Right. And
And I was just going to say, at what point does protecting your government's image take precedence over protecting your people? That's,
no, absolutely, it shouldn't. Never. That should never be the way, ever. We can say that Russia learned from it. God, I hope they did. There was enormous amounts of radioactive debris were scattered around the site, and workers were removing contaminated material from rooftops and surrounding areas. Like people. So they
I
finally
thought it
brought
was
robots to
funny.
do it.
Yeah, they were calling those people the liquidators. It
Mm-hmm.
just sounds funny to me. Like the people
Yeah,
doing the cleanup operation.
yeah.
It just
I
sounds like the liquidators.
and I know that long abandoned reactors are cleaned out by humans now, but they're under the proper precautions and all of those things. I know that. But they did finally bring in robots to help because the people were they finally got to the point where they were like, hey, maybe let's send a robot in to clean the radioactive hellscape.
Yeah, but think about how primitive robots were in the 1980s compared to now.
Well,
Like
sure.
anybody, if my 21-year-old was listening to this episode and we said they're bringing in the robots to clean it up, you would picture like a robot walking in, moving
Mm-hmm.
shit.
Yeah.
Like I think that anybody that's not Gen X or older really needs to understand that bringing in robots was very primitive.
Yes, extremely so. They did not look like the ones that they have today. And unfortunately, because of all of the intense radiation interfered with some of that with the electronic equipment. So the robots basically went, I have a 404 error and I'm going to stop working. So that was
Yeah,
technology 1986.
yeah, and then they said they were bio robots, but that was just human beings being sent in because the
Mm-hmm.
machines couldn't even do the job. So
Mm-hmm.
the liquidators turned into bio robots.
And they are the ones who removed all the radioactive debris and they decontaminated buildings and they buried contaminated material, constructed the initial concrete shelter over the destroyed reactor and helped prevent the disaster from becoming even worse. So while you and I are watching The Karate Kid and trying to figure out how to make our hair look like the guy from Flock of Seagulls, what was his name? Mike something. These
I
people
don't
were
remember.
cleaning up one of the largest nuclear disasters in history. People were doing
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and some of them were workers, some of them were firefighters, there were soldiers, and then there was people that even volunteered because this was home to thousands of people. And what do you do when there's a tragedy? You come in and try to help and clean it up.
Right. Right.
One of the darkest things to me, and I think you probably will relate to this, was also when the people were evacuated, so many of the animals were left behind, and they actually started killing the contaminated animals because they were worried about the radiation spreading. So,
Yeah.
you know how we talk about the horse getting killed in Never Ending Story, or, like
Yeah,
the
these are things
idea
that
of all these.
it's just awful. It's terrible. Your beloved animal becomes just disposable and that's I hate that. I hate that. I hate that part about it. I
It's
hate the human part about it, but I really hate that part as well. And to your point about what you said about Sweden, Sweden's the one who told the rest of the world.
Yeah, because they weren't going to.
Nope. And Sweden was reporting really elevated radiation levels. They were detecting them at their nuclear power plant. And they were like, "Hey, guys, what's up? What's up?"
I think they originally thought something was going wrong at their own power plant, and then
Mm-hmm.
they realized that it had to be coming from somewhere else.
Yeah, which is, you don't
Don't
really
worry, it's
want
not our
your
reactor.
exactly. That's no. Those are not really the words you want to say. Great, it's
Yeah,
another country's.
it's another country's reactor, but we're reading high levels. The whole area around it is called the exclusion zone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It covers a huge area surrounding the plant, and because humans were removed from the much of the region, nature began reclaiming it. Forests grew, wildlife returned, buildings deteriorated, roads disappeared beneath vegetation. And of course, because the internet exists, somebody eventually looked at all this and said, hey, let's go. Let's go take a tour.
I don't think I want to sign up for that,
I don't
but it
either.
is. Lots of tourists wanted to go to the abandoned places and see history. I do kind of get it, but that doesn't sound like relaxing vacation or something.
No, can you
I don't
imagine?
know.
Hey, Julie, let's go to a nice relaxing vacation to Chernobyl.
Let's go
No.
to an abandoned radioactive city and hang out.
Yeah, no, no thanks. No thanks. Mm-mm. Not doing that. But despite all of the radiation, a lot of wildlife has returned to the region. And basically, nature looked at the ruins and said, humans are gone? Fucking great. Awesome. We're going to take this from here. We don't need humans. We don't need you guys here. Look what you did. Look what you did.
You know, I'm a medical person. I'm like more interested in what this does to the human body. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm upset about the wildlife and everything too, but like I always want to know how things like work with the human body. And
Mm-hmm.
these radiation deaths were horrific, but the long-term consequences, it was like something that's not quite as clear. But it's, increased thyroid cancer and particularly for children. And it's not like a poison that sits inside you waiting to attack. It's an energy that damages your cells and DNA, which is when they proliferate. Oh, I can't even talk today. Per,
Proliferate.
proliferate.
The password is proliferate.
Words are hard. I know sometimes, like, I know what I want to say in my brain and it sounds smart in my brain, and then it comes out of my mouth and I'm like, I swear I know what I'm talking about. But anyway, these damaged cells, when they regenerate and make new cells, look, I'm going to skip around it. They make them with errors and cause cancer. And it's, you're exposed to something that you can't see, smell, or feel, so you don't understand what it's doing to you.
Right. And nobody did. It's still the immediate deaths afterwards were devastating, but it didn't end, and Chernobyl's consequences didn't end in 86 because you have no idea what the long term is going to be. The thousands of people who were affected by radiation exposure and displacement, and as you said, the rates of thyroid cancer certainly increased, especially in children. And the broader health and environmental consequences have been studied for decades, and estimates of the total long term death toll, they vary significantly depending on the methodology. So it's just another reminder that numbers can make tragedy feel abstract because the numbers don't number. The math doesn't math.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's when they say that people want to take tours, some of it I like because if you think about, despite all this radiation, like wildlife returns, plants are growing, it's like the earth is trying to heal itself, and there's
Mm-hmm.
beauty in that. Like that's spectacular. I just don't want to go damage my DNA and get cancer, but it it's still like not okay. Even if there's animals that are thriving there and plants, it's still a very damaged and toxic area, and that's our earth, and we only have one of them, you know?
Right. Right. And Chernobyl isn't it wasn't just a technological failure, it was a failure of communication and safety culture and transparency and decision making. I mean, all of these flags just right in a row, or all the dominoes I should say in a row, and then they all went down. And we I don't want to say we witnessed it because we live here. We don't live there, so we witnessed it as a viewer looking into that. And there was fear that that cloud would get to the United States and other countries, and what kind of effects would it have on us? What would happen? And I remember thinking then, well, if the adults didn't save us from that, why should I believe it when they say that the cloud isn't going to make its way to other places? How do they know?
So the scary thing too, though, is just even with America, like they didn't care so much about nuclear power just for the reason of bombs. It was to power their country. They
Mm-hmm.
had plans for having like strategic places to run these big cities with this cheap power, and then they were going to be like sophisticated, self sufficient. We all hear that. That's what we want for our country too. We want to
Right.
provide power for everybody that's safe and clean, and it just turns into this race, and that's why they call it the nuclear arms race. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like build more, build fast, get more electricity, show we're superior, and it's just so much ego that like they're not admitting when they went too far or they were wrong, and then letting their people die as a result.
Right.
So
Right.
I
And
just
it for us, for Gen X, this is why Chernobyl hits us so the way it does, is that we were raised during the Cold War. We grew up with nuclear war hanging over everything. We had movies about nuclear apocalypse, right? We had Day After, War Games, Red Dawn. You remember the duck and cover drills, Jules?
oh yeah,
The hide under
like
your desk.
we're putting our hands over our head like somehow that's going to save us from radioactivity.
Obviously, the Soviet Union's going to be like, well, can't get that kid. Look, they're under a desk with the book over their head. Can't get that one.
Well, they had warning signs. In 1975 there was an accident in Leningrad, and that kind of exposed the weaknesses, but it still wasn't communicated across the system in the
Yeah.
Soviet Union, and they didn't correct it because it it's like, should we fix it? No, that's expensive. Should we tell
Yep.
everybody? No, that's
Nope.
embarrassing. Okay,
Yep.
let's just write it in a memo somewhere, and then they
Yep.
filed it.
And Chernobyl remains one of the defining technological disasters of the modern era because it also became a lesson about engineering and safety and transparency and about what happens when people are afraid to speak up to a person in authority telling them they need to do something, and about the catastrophic consequences of ignoring warning signs.
Well, and it's not, these operators were not idiots. Like, these people
Mm-mm.
are some of the smartest people in the world. And a lot of them were forced to build these systems with direct threat of their life or their families. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it was a high pressure, stressful thing, but it wasn't it wasn't that they were not intelligent. It was that they were working inside a system where authority mattered.
Right.
And they say, I don't think it's safe, and they say, well, we're doing a test. We're doing it, and they do it.
Right.
And
And I think that
I don't
that's
know.
why Gen X is kind of the way they are with authority, is that we respect it, but we also treat it with cynicism on who that person in authority is, right?
It's like the Challenger explosion, only worse, because it's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
thousands of people, but it's definitely the whole Gen X theme on why we question authority. And I don't know, the way we have data at our fingertips now on what's going on and updates and news, it wasn't like that. Like back then, we did have televisions, but it was mostly like newspapers that you would get days later, and it wasn't, or you would be told by somebody's older brother what happened, and we didn't understand a lot of the gravity of this back then.
Right. And as kids, we didn't. Yeah.
No, like my fear was, hey, can it kill a 10-year-old girl in Florida? Because I thought it might. We
Right.
were doing
That's
drills.
how. Right. That's how we all were. Can this get me? It's not to say that that's selfish math, right? It's more of a I'm a kid and I don't understand how to process this, and so I can process it the only way I know how, which is it going to get me?
The Soviet Union was a superpower, and this Cold War, it's been going on for decades, and it still goes on. I mean, look at Iran now, and we're like, well, we don't want them to have nuclear weapons. We see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I would say this is the Gen X takeaway is basically first, if your nuclear reactor starts doing something weird, maybe stop touching it. Stop touching buttons. Stop wondering what things do. And second, if someone says it's probably fine, it's probably not fine. It's definitely not fine. I know I've said it and I'm like, that is definitely not fine. I'll say it and I'm like, nope, that's definitely not going to be fine.
As children, we're raised like that adults know best, the government knows best,
Mm-hmm.
scientists, teachers, like we're taught to respect authority. And then for us, we watch like Watergate, the Vietnam War, this Cold War, the Challenger. It's like we changed from okay, maybe we should believe them, but maybe we should also check.
Yeah,
And this is one of those things where transparency becomes more important than authority for us, I feel like.
right. I agree. And your safety plan shouldn't involve the phrase, don't tell anybody. That shouldn't be your safety plan. That when you open up your OSHA handbook or your company's safety, the phrase don't tell anybody shouldn't be in there. And if it is, maybe take a long, hard look at the company that you're working for.
With technology too, you would expect that we would feel safer, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel safer. Like in 1986, our fears were like the Soviet Union and nuclear power and war and all of that. But like for now, it's like cyber attacks, or we worry about AI with computers taking over like Terminator.
Mm-hmm.
We're worried about the climate of our world, which, we don't treat it right. That is a legitimate fear to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have this social media misinformation where it tells, like, the algorithms on social media tell you things that you like to hear about. So if you
Right.
have an irrational thought and you search it up, it's going to keep showing you other people that have that same irrational thought,
Right. Or
which
it's
is
gonna it's gonna have
terrifying.
it's gonna have be filled of people who take a picture and post an irrational thought or comment on it and be like, yep, that's true. No, it's not. It's that's what you think, and putting words over a picture doesn't mean what you think it means. It's just and that's the society that we live in. That's the worst part. Is that that's what we live in with a media and a social media that are bound and determined to split us apart. That's their MO.
And
That's their MO.
it is. And then we still totally have nuclear weapons. And we also have like space and satellite warfare. And
Mm-hmm.
then we also have biotechnology where you worry about like them making viruses and spreading
Yes.
them.
Yeah.
And the technology has changed, but unfortunately human nature hasn't.
No,
And
it's probably gotten worse, which is a really sad commentary. But again, we're Gen X. We were raised by people who looked directly at a potential lethal situation of a nuclear reactor and said, "You'll be fine."
what do we know now compared to then? A lot. Hopefully we can make it to where history doesn't always repeat itself. Like we
Mm-hmm.
all educate ourselves and each other about this stuff, and
Well, if we'd stop
and
taking out
maybe,
the shit we don't like, then it won't. But if you continue to take out parts of history that you don't like, then you're going to repeat it.
well, I mean, was Chernobyl one giant bad decision, or was it thousands of little decisions that nobody stopped? It was thousands.
Mm-hmm.
I think that as we get older as a generation, we're hopefully instilling in our children and our youth that we do have to question. And I think that Gen X is probably the first generation communicated more to where we don't always assume that authority knows what's right.
I agree with that. Yes, that is true. We respect it, but we question it. You should question it, but not I don't know how to
You
phrase this
can you
without
can you can
people coming
respectfully
for
question
me.
it.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Thank you. That's much
Like you might
nicer.
not agree with you might not agree with your doctor and say, "Hey, I don't think you're right." You don't have to say, "Hey, you're a dumbass." You say,
Right.
"Okay, respectfully, I'm going to go get a second opinion." And
Exactly.
that's how we
Exactly.
need to handle more things in life is
Yes.
respectfully, I'm going to get another opinion too.
Yeah, instead of going respectfully, you're a piece of shit. We don't do that. We don't want to do it that way.
Well, with social media and like the way people communicate through computers and stuff now, though, we lose a lot of that basic respect. It's like people say things that they would never say face to face.
Yes. It's
And
social media. Social media is. I saw a comment on something the other day that somebody said that social media was a cancer, but TikTok was an ass cancer. I was like, that is perfect. It's perfect. Now I don't have TikTok. I'm never gonna get it. And if people send me TikToks, I'm like, well, I'm not watching that. Don't send them to me, because I'm not fucking watching it. But
I mean, Facebook
when
Reels and Instagram Reels are basically the same to me, but I get what
I
you're
have my
saying.
Facebook reels curated to be only animals, and if I see anything in there that's not, I'm like, hide that shit and get your shit together, Facebook. So I try to train it to give me only what I'm looking for. But I know that it listens. We all know that it listens, and that's the scary part, because when I'm researching an episode and I'm doing my research on it, I have to do that through Google. And then the next thing I know, my reels are looking like what I was like. I was researching. I'm not asking you to feed that to me, asshole. I'm just fucking doing research.
I said something yesterday to my husband about mushrooms, and then I started getting ads to buy psilocybins
Yeah.
online. I was like,
Yeah.
what?
Yep. Yeah. That's just it. That's the slippery slope, right? We have to do research for certain episodes when they're not nostalgia based, right? And so when we do that, we have to use the computer or our phones to do it. That involves doing searches and looking at articles and looking at newsprint and looking at all these things. And then that everything's connected. And the next thing you know, Facebook's like, what about this? I'm like, what the fuck? I was doing research. I'm not interested in that. Fuck you. Like, that's the scary part. I don't like, that's what I don't like. If somebody does it, they're like, well, you can just Google that. I'm like, I'm not Googling that. It's going to fuck up my algorithm. We're not Googling that. Just tell me. Tell me what it is you want me to know. It's that same thing when you, and I don't get into arguments on Facebook because I don't need to waste my time and energy on.
Yeah, I love doing these episodes because I like to go down the wormhole, and
Yeah.
I really tried to listen to the other podcasts, and they were so boring. So
God
hopefully this
God
one's
love
a
you.
little
You were
bit
like,
better.
I'm giving it a shot, and you were like, snooze fest.
Well, I was driving home from Tallahassee in the rain at like 11 o'clock at night trying to listen about this, and I was like, I can't. This is.
Yeah, that's not something you
And
want
it
to
was
listen to
this
in that
lady with a
environment.
British accent that was like, I don't even know how to explain it, but I needed it in Russian. I think it would have been much more fun to listen to.
Probably with the accent. Yeah, we do both like to go down those rabbit holes, but at the same time we're doing them. It's like, this is gonna fuck up my algorithm. I know it. I just know it. But we want when we're doing episodes like this, we want to have facts, and we want to give you as much information that we. I don't want to say we know is correct, because again, this is just research based. So it's what we're reading and what we're seeing, and obviously we're not asking ChatGPT to give us that information, because that can be incorrect. But it's a lot of Googling, and it's a lot of, let me read this article or let me watch this story on YouTube. Or my YouTube algorithm will start being like, what about this? I'm like, I don't want to see that. Like, I was just doing research.
I'm done. On to the next. No,
Exactly.
I think like our version of this though is less facts and statistics about this nuclear disaster. It's like what happens when like this fear and secrecy and ego and bad decisions all collide,
Yeah.
and how that affects us as a generation, knowing like adults built weapons that could like destroy the world.
And they don't
And
care.
no, and it I think some of the design, I don't think it was designed just to be like this horrible take over the world thing. Like I think these were designed to make people's life better and to create powers for cities. I think that it became deadly when people took the back seat to like the power and pride of it. Like
Right.
I
As
don't think
that's
the intentions are
The
let's
intentions
blow
weren't
up the
evil to begin
universe.
with, right? Right. And that's what happens with most inventions, right? It's the intention is it's going to do this, and then some nefarious asshole's like, hey, you know what else we could do with this? It's always there's always one. There's always one.
Yeah, and when I was listening to the podcast, they were talking about how people would share these nuclear information to build this stuff with other countries, and their motive, they said, was to make it fair, like so that it was available for everybody. But then when you have such power and strength in the wrong hands, it's terrifying.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
where do we find that balance on who deserves this information and who deserves to be able to handle this stuff? And I
Mm-hmm.
think my only answer is the people that can do it safely with good intentions, and that's not many.
It's not in power anyway. Not in power. And when I wrote this episode, I wrote it to be more. Here's what happened. Not here are the technological things that happened. It was more of a timeline and what caused it. Not all these tech, because I can't. My brain can't listen to that without going, okay, I'm not listening to this anymore. I'm fucking tuning out. It's this type of stuff. We're coming at it from a different perspective, and we're not trying to give you fact number one, fact number two, and be this
On this
textbook
date at
thing.
this
Yeah,
time.
we're not doing that. So take that. I want you to understand that as you listen to episodes like this, that we're not trying to be clinical about it. We're not coming
Well,
at it from that type of a viewpoint.
that's the thing about us, though. Gen X learned early that like adults don't always have a plan,
Nope.
and that sometimes they're just winging it too, and that's kind of how we are too. Like we know the facts, we get in here talking about it, but we go on tangents and go way off. But the whole principle is like this is how it affected our generation, and it did.
Yep.
And you know, unlike today, we didn't have Google to tell us how screwed we were. We had like a landline phone with your mom telling you to get off and like e-channels. And we still survived. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the real lesson is when everybody in the room is afraid to say something's wrong, that's when you should really be worrying. And that's probably my takeaway from this whole episode.
Yep. Is stand up for what you know is. If it's something is incorrect, say something about it. If it's putting people in jeopardy, a lot of people are doing that nowadays. I just think they're doing it in a really violent manner, and I think that's problematic. But that's another. I'm not getting into that. That's has nothing to do with Gen X. I'm not going down there. So anyway, we
Thank
survived.
you for listening. We're
Thank
alive.
you. Yes, thank you for listening. We're glad that you stuck around for this episode. We know it's a bit of a heavy one. Sometimes we do because a lot of heavy shit happened while we were growing up. So we survived it mostly. And so just remember, don't go touring any nuclear disasters. Just stay out of the exclusion zone, okay?
Yeah, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't feel it, but you definitely don't want to mess up your DNA.
Right. Don't go traveling to those types of places. Go to a resort. Go do something fun, not a nuclear disaster.
Hike in a beautiful place with no radioactivity.
Right. Right. So
Yeah,
until
and
next
hug a
time.
tree. Bye.